All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to Martin Associates Acumatica Year End Closing here in December 2022. My name is Tom Ferris. I am our Acumatica Practice Manager, and excited to kind of take us all through. Thank you very much for joining us today. There will be, in addition to the recording being available afterwards, we'll also present a PDF of the agenda that we're going to move through today. And, we of course always love to field your questions regarding Acumatica current processes or future processes. Okay. With those brief introductions, I will pull our slide down and we'll just hop right into Acumatica. All right. I'm in Acumatica 2022 R2. So it's possible that some of the interface, not really any of the core features for period, let alone year-end close, will be different, even if you're in an older version of Acumatica today. But just know that I am in a basically a sales demo tenant provided by Acumatica in the most current version, 2022 R2. Okay. We are going to be coming back in and out of this master financial calendar page quite a bit today. I've got there through coming into finance and pulling up the master financial calendar. And we can basically see for a given year, for example, 2022, that we've got subledger or module level closure, fixed assets, cash, inventory if applicable, accounts receivable, accounts payable. And then once those are done as prerequisites, then we can actually close the period in the general ledger. And so really this status column right here refers to the general ledger status. All right, I have a few kind of housekeeping, admin, expectation setting items to run through briefly here before we move through our agenda. We are going to, we're going to cover accounts payable, including 1099. We're going to cover accounts receivable, cash or banking closure. Those are going to be applicable to pretty much everyone on this call. We'll spend a few minutes looking at closing the inventory subledger with a brief aside for those who manage inventory in and out of manufacturing processes. We'll spend just a minute or two on fixed asset closing for those who might have Acumatica's fixed asset module. Then we'll wrap it back up into closing out the GL and then performing the final year-end close process. All right, so we talked about the version. I'm going to visit briefly here under my favorites page, which kind of helps me navigate Acumatica's modules. I'm going to pop into one item under system management and know that you're welcome, of course, to ask Martin Associates for kind of any guidance on things we see today that you don't currently have either enabled, configured, or are employing. Just know that the enabled disabled features here today, we are looking at, search it, right? 1099. So I do have 1099 reporting turned on, so that'll be part of our AP close. We also briefly talk about allocations as a procedural component. Allocations are yet another option that you may or may not have turned on, general ledger allocation templates, as well as a brief discussion about commissions in accounts receivable and their impacts to accounts payable. Commissions is another feature that you may or may not have turned on. All right, so a couple features. Next, let's go talk about some of the settings. I'll come in here to the finance module and show all and take a look at the general ledger preferences. Again, I'm doing a little bit of expectation setting about how my demonstration environment will perform today and what are some of the things driving it. On general ledger preferences, I have checked restrict access to closed periods. And this basically pertains to security. So let's do a quick security check and visit a user type. I'll go pop into I'm in there as kind of a training administrator, and I possess a out-of-the-box Acumatica user role called Financial Supervisor. This allows me to interact with closed periods, not locked periods, but closed periods. So this is really an auditor's job or post-audit entry. So the period has been closed, but we have an audit-based entry that we need to do into the GL. Okay, so some of the period management status values that we look at, this financial supervisor role can optionally restrict or grant who can actually put in those kind of audit related entries. Okay, and so I'll quickly highlight a piece here. There we go. So a quick reminder that help.acumatica.com, if you basically type in predefined roles or user roles, you can actually see a list of these roles, including our financial supervisor. Okay, let's see where to go. Here's the role. All right, so just if you needed a list, you can either get this right from your Acumatica instance or go out to the publicly accessible help.acumatica.com and kind of retrieve some of that. And of course, don't hesitate to ask us at Martin Associates. Okay, so to kind of conclude our user review, if say I was doing entry, let's see, who did I have? Alberto. Oops. Now let's do it this way. Sorry about that. So this user, for example, this is again our sales demo system. If I look at the user roles that are granted to this user, they do not possess that financial supervisor role. So once we close a period, which we're going to do here in a minute, this user wouldn't be able to enter any audit related entries there, but I would be able to because I possess that security role. All right. Last of a few little administrative bits. In the accounts payable, when we look at the 1099 features, wanted to remind us that it is the accounts payable preferences tab that possesses a 1099 settings tab that out of the box comes with some thresholds in that rental payments have a minimum reporting amount that's pre-configured by Acumatica of a $600 threshold. So if you do have vendors or contractors who you're recording 1099 box entries for, there are some instances where if you don't meet the minimum threshold, the production of the 1099 MISC or NEC form will not produce any output, even though there's some entries, right? So say here's NEC. This used to be good old box 7. Non-employee compensation, it too has a $600 minimum amount. In Acumatica, you can always change those. Okay. All right. I think that should be the last of our general review. So let's get into it. I've also chosen as my homepage for today's demonstration the master financial calendar. All right, so I click on the Acumatica logo upper left, and I'm brought right back to it. So let's talk briefly about status values. The life cycle of a period in Acumatica is at first it's inactive, has never been activated, then it's open, then it's eligible for closure, then it's eligible to be locked, and each of those processes is reversible. So if I close a period, and only the financial supervisor can put in audit-related entries into a closed period. If it needs to be reopened, that's a thing. We can always reopen closed periods. If once I'm done with all audits, and I'm ready to not just close a period, but lock it. That means that no one can put entries into that period, including the financial supervisor, and a locked period can be unlocked. So these are the list of action items. And in this version of Acumatica, if I'm going to be closing periods or locking periods, I can just kind of hit that little star and kind of add those as buttons. Those are actions I've invoked from the ellipsis here with all the possible actions I could take on this form. I will keep coming back to this quite a bit. All right, we're also going to see some closure activity, but I wanted to use this demo database to kind of come up with like a common exception or resolving an impediment. So let's go through closing some of this data. If I scroll back in the master financial calendar, back to in my sample database, back to 2016, you can see that this we've been fairly negligent in this example data. But the subledgers, as well as the GL, have been closed up through March of 2016, and I want to close April 2016. And I've already closed all the subledgers, but I still have an open GL. I can still put journal entries in, regardless of security role that I possess. I can still put in GL entries. So what's going on here? Let's attempt to close this period, and we'll get ourselves a little message about an impeding document or two. First kind of behavior, financial period closure from this form in basically all ledgers. If I want to close a given period, it will assume I must close all preceding periods. Pretty obvious. Right now, I'm just trying to close just one in order to generate this. Unposted documents. And in each subledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, inventory, etc., banking, cash, will be this button here, unposted documents. And if I attempt to close this, I suspect I will still have an error. Okay, so I wanted to basically show this error. In the April 2016 period, can't be closed because there's at least one unposted batch that exists for this period. Okay, so how do we resolve that? With this period highlighted, notice that the unposted documents button lights up, and it's going to bring me to a little mini pop-up report that lets me know that there's a GL batch that's on hold in that period. Looks like this was a consolidation of a different tenant in a different base currency, euros. Okay. That report will bring me right to that batch. And really, I need to do one of two things. I need to either delete a document that's on hold or balanced, or I need to release it, one or the other. This I'm just going to simply delete. Hit OK. And that should be gone. Now it's a browser, so I'll make sure I refresh. On managing financial periods, I would like to close April 2016. Do I have any unposted documents? No. Excellent. So let's process that. Okay, so now I was able to successfully close. That was just a little mini demo in any of these subledgers. We're going to start moving through these APARIN. We can basically close periods from the subledgers first, and each of them will have this unposted documents impediment if it detects documents that are on hold, balanced, or even unposted. All right. All right, so in general, now we're kind of moving to some general company internal procedures. Before any of the close processes that we're going to go through, you may very well have some prerequisites. One would be performing allocations. So are there allocations to be performed? And I'll come back here to my favorites menu. So we're in the finance menu module here. So do we have allocations to run? And a reminder, if you don't have this feature, these are basically rules that can be run one rule at a time, such as rental expenses spread across branches or divisions of the company, or allocating utility expenses based on maybe not branches, but by headcount per branch. These are all kind of rules that can be run. And these, the running of allocations doesn't have to be triggered manually from this form by selecting a couple or hitting process all. It can also be run on a schedule, an automation schedule. So maybe this has already taken place and the user is simply double checking to make sure that pre-close allocations have all actually been run. Okay. You may have a need to generate recurring documents that haven't been, wrong place, so let's go here, generate recurring transactions. So the automatic creation of GL posts, for example, and this is applicable in AP and AR as well. This is another procedural step that you need to make sure that there aren't any queued up generate recurring transactions that haven't been created and should be created and released. Next would be, if you do have multiple currencies, do you need to perform any revaluation of foreign currency accounts? So this will only typically pertain if you have the currency management suite, in which in case you might have to be running a year end or a period close, or even a daily translation of currencies and releasing. It's a whole separate topic. Please feel free to reach out to us at Martin Associates if you have questions about revaluation of foreign currency accounts. Last would be, kind of taking a peek at the trial balance, either in summary or detailed mode. All right. So now let's get into accounts payable close. I'm going to pull up one more help item here. Another quick reminder about Acumatica Help, in that closing financial periods. To close a period in a subledger, in addition to today's Martin Associates based recording and our willingness to always hop on the phone with you for your particular challenges or needs, just a quick reminder that the publisher has some of this content identified. And the recording is not terribly exciting, but it's pretty straightforward about closing financial periods in subledgers like AP and AR. Okay, so another little plug for help.acumatica.com, right at your fingertips. All right, let's get into accounts payable. And I'm going to go through a few things regarding 1099s. All right, so let's start with the 1099 year. So within accounts payable, taking a look at like the 1099 year summary, for example, I'm running that for 2020 for the NEC. And we can, kind of set expectations that if I ask for a 1099 NEC print run, I should have two different vendors, both, so they're both impacting just box one. Okay, so it's kind of a preview. And then if we go visit the actual print form, my 2020 year here, and I apologize, I didn't have 2022 1099 data prepared. I'm just kind of working with what Acumatica gave me in here. And a reminder that if you haven't done 1099 MISC or NEC forms, that Acumatica out of the box is expecting you to have gone down to Home Depot or the Office Depot, pardon, and purchased the 1099 applicable stock, because it prints out, basically just expecting you to put the stock into your printer. Okay, so that's a quick review of like reporting, printing, and then a reminder that if you haven't, or if you have established an e-file account with the IRS, that Acumatica will prep that file. Let's go with an NEC upload. Again, we saw that preview in the report that we've got 2 applicable vendors. If I select these 2 and hit process, the result is a file that's ready to be uploaded to the IRS's website. Okay, so just the .txt. All right, some basic kind of 1099 settings. NEC was introduced really in 2021. So I think everyone on this call should have MISC and NEC in their Acumatica application. If you don't, give us a ring. All right. Quick reminder that 1099 balances. Let's get our vendor history. Payables, and again, payables closures with the 1099 component. This is the most significant part as far as the subledger closure. So bear with me here. We'll move on to accounts receivable here shortly. Right, I wanted to look at the vendor history. That's fine. Let's take a look at an example vendor for 2020. And that kind of gives us a preview. Again, another kind of reporting object in 1099. Let's go with our 1099 year details report for that vendor, having gotten that preview. 20. Okay, just another layout. Now it's letting us know about particular bills. And let's say on these reports, prior to printing out, maybe I detected at the wrong box. Checked. So now we'll pop into our bills and adjustments form and visit that document in question. I actually could have set this report to actually have a hyperlink straight to it from there. Apologies that I'm kind of doing this the manual route. Let's go look at that document. So again, it's closed. It's a closed AP bill, but even having posted, it is eligible to update the 1099 box that remains an editable field. Okay, so if our reporting, let alone if we didn't detect it until we printed or filed for that matter, if we actually whenever we discover the fact that an AP bill was miscoded to the inappropriate 1099 box, those remain editable in Acumatica, so you can correct them and then reprint. Now, if the amount is wrong, that's going to require reversal, right? There's no correcting the 1099 amount. As easy as it is to change which box it's to be filed under. So if you did have an error that's amount-based, you will need to go through the reverse process. Okay, reverse the posting and basically reconstruct that bill. Different topic, reach out if you have questions about reversal and are not familiar with that. All right, that's all I had for kind of the 1099 basics. Now let's get down to AP, closing out the AP, having say filed our 1099s. So we spent quite a bit of time on the master financial calendar already. We'll keep coming back to this. What we're really doing now is the equivalent in the subledger. Payables, close financial periods. That we can just go that way. And conducting subledger reconciliation. I'll only do this for AP, but it would be applicable in inventory, cash banking, as well as accounts receivable. Let's talk about some of the reconciliation tools that would commonly be employed. One would be coming into payables and pulling up a report like AP balance by GL account. And all right, so I'm running kind of current here, even though some of my data is still stuck back in 2020 or 2016. But AP balance by GL account, run that report. And this is going to move through. If you have, we've got a vendor deposits account with a balance of minus $50 in it at 1320. Even more material would be, say, account 2000 or 20,000. Accounts payable. And this looks like it's a multi-page report. Do not believe there's any other accounts that are invoked on this report. So that means that if I go to the end, here's what the accounts payable module considers the balance at present in accounts payable account 2000 or 20,000. And on the GL side, the equivalent would be to come here and run something along the lines of account by period, or even account details. So if I'm current, and I'm looking at 20,000 accounts payable. So I'm basically comparing this to this. Now I know that somewhere between 2016 and present, there's about a $5,000. There we are, 2,592 versus 2,597. I know Acumatica has embedded like a $5,000 document that would need to be resolved to bring these two into alignment. But this is the technique. Account details in the GL or finance module, or account by period are typically the GL side of the reconciliation at the subledger level. And AP balance by GL account, pretty straightforward. Subledger balance for GL account. All right, so quick little reconciliation pre-check before proceeding with closure. And there's that unreleased documents. This will light up if we have any documents. So I've come to the closed financial periods within the AP subledger. And let's say I want to close all of 2016. You might not have an adjustment period, but this is something that Acumatica accommodates, a 13th period, for example. Let's just process those and see if I generate any errors. Nope. Okay, so it'll close 2016. What if I want to, maybe I haven't done this, or maybe I'm just rehearsing this in a test tenant, or in my case, I've got a sales demo database that I want to close things all the way up from 2016, well, now 2017, up through, say, March of, oops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to go to March of 2022 and hit process. Now, in doing that, if you look at the pages, I clicked forward on 2022 and it has backfilled 2021 and 2020 and 2019 all the way back. Let's see if we generate any errors. If there's any other documents hanging up there. Those periods. No, I was able to close all of those. Okay, so that was a very simple AP module closure. We already saw an unreleased documents kind of impediment earlier. If I click back on my homepage link, we'll see that closed in AP is checked for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 22. Not really to expect that this would be your procedure. The idea here today was to demonstrate some of the features that we've got. Subledger closure process, including impeding document detection, as well as kind of managing the master financial calendar and seeing all those ledgers. Those subledgers begin to close out. All right, so we did reconciliation 1099 and then AP subledger closure. Those are really kind of the highlights of AP. We are on to AR. Now, this is all going to look fairly similar in that in accounts receivable, you can go through a very similar GL to AR subledger reconciliation process. AR balance by GL account would be a common report to run for the appropriate period that you're closing, or periods up through. All right, and that the report's is going to look very similar to the accounts payable. It'll be broken down at the account level. If we have multiple AR accounts, you'll be paying attention to this heading, and then detecting the balance on a per account basis. All right, accounts receivable also has its own closed financial periods. This is going to start to look a little redundant. It's the same form, right? So I could be closing from May of 2016 up to present, or as far forward as I wish, including unreleased documents. So accounts receivable, we'll move through that pretty quickly. Next would be, and again, you don't have to do this in a particular order. This could be based on when staff is told their final day to put in documents in a given module. So accounts receivable would typically be closed out, possibly AP, then AR, and up next would be banking. All right, so here's our closed financial periods for banking. There are a number of inquiries for cash account detail balances in the cash or banking module. They're going to look very similar to AP and AR reconciliations for GL. Same closed financial periods process, period selection, year, detecting any documents like fund-to-fund transfers that have been forgotten about, entered, left on hold. Okay, so cash banking closure is pretty straightforward, much like AP and AR. We are now on to inventory. So inventory has a few more reports for those of you who are distributors, manufacturers, e-commerce retailers with significant inventory. There's a little bit more to this at times. While the closed financial periods process form looks the same, except for an extra button. So documents not posted to inventory. This will often pertain to field services, manufacturing, transactions that happen upstream from inventory but impact inventory. So it's an additional check to see if you have a document that is not released. As far as reconciliation, most common reconciliations would be to use the inventory valuation report for either present or inventory valuation, historic inventory valuation. Sorry, there it is. If you are closing prior periods and reconciling that to the appropriate inventory account in the general ledger. If we do detect a delta between things after going through that reconciliation, I did want to point out one administrative technique, especially when it comes to inventory with all of its cost layers, is the recalculate inventory process form. Ideally, this form wouldn't even exist, right? The data would be recorded perfectly, but in a large database with thousands of transactions, Acumatica has always had a recalculate inventory. There's some of the other subledgers also have a kind of recalculate or correction. This will basically go back through and relook at inventory item history and transactions and possibly resolve a reconciliation delta. It's just the system's kind of like double check. This process can take a while. It can also be run automatically for even just like a subset of records. But with inventory coming and going, being adjusted, systems upstream from Acumatica like e-commerce portals, EDI connections, given the volume at times, it may be necessary to recalculate inventory that may be detected at the time of period or year-end close. Okay, so that's just a utility that you might have to invoke, and Martin Associates, will have to kind of talk you through those examples of recalculating inventory. Closing periods, recalculating inventory, are reconciliation-based reports. Are pretty straightforward. In fact, why don't I just do that? I'll just kind of close financial periods all the way up through March 2022 examples. We kind of align with AR, for example. And let's see if there's any documents out there. All right, so the button lights up even before I hit go and possibly run into an error. The unreleased documents reminds me, someone left a transfer inventory, like a warehouse to warehouse inventory transfer, on hold from 2017. All right, so you kind of see in the cleanup process here, got a one-step transfer. It doesn't even have any detailed lines, but this document in 2017 is still enough to impede close. So gotta get rid of it. There goes that. And we'll refresh, and I'll go back to my settings again. 2022. Thank you very much. Scroll to the end down here, lower right, and all the way out to March. Check on unreleased documents. Good. Documents not posted to inventory. Okay. So some credit hold documents from 2018 and 2019 respectively. All right, well, this is good. We still got another 20 minutes left, so you get to see me kind of go through the sales demo data and find some data entry records to be cleaned up. All right, so on credit hold, this AR invoice has not posted to the GL. I'm going to assume from 2018. I've already handled this somewhere else in my financials, and I'm okay to delete it. Okay, so each time this comes up, I should be going through, we got a shipment record that's partially invoiced, okay? So that's waiting for the invoice to be prepared from 2018. You know what? This might, if you have these kinds of challenges, this is probably a good breakout. I feel like I'm going a little too far down the rabbit hole, but you get the idea that Acumatica, if you do have documents, and shame on the sales demo company for having shipments that were partially invoiced and other impediments, but this means that I won't be able to close out through 2022. Looks like I started encountering documents in 2018. See how far I can get. Let's see, can I get January 2008 up through January 2018 closed? Okay, so documents not posted to inventory is clear. So this is really, shipment records from a sales order that are designed to both hit COGS and credit sales, as well as accounts receivable and decrement inventory. That's why we see an extra button here. Unreleased documents in that range. No, that's good. So I could actually process at least 2018 for our inventory subledger. Okay, we'll bring us back to our kind of master financial calendar. And now, at least for, say, 2017, we've successfully gone and closed out AP subledger, IN subledger. Could have done banking in AR, but it's pretty redundant. All right, so inventory. Last item regarding inventory would be if you're in manufacturing, that production transactions like recording labor and completion of operations without anything but, like, say, standard labor considerations on a move form or materials issues. And the materials transactions for a production order could also be causing a receipt as well as an issue. Oops, let's get that field exposed. I want to see the IN doc type and the IN reference number. So a reminder that production activity was impacting inventory, and our inventory close may reference, as we saw, shipments and AR invoices, but it also might reference production or manufacturing transactions that were not completed successfully. And so this production transaction is issuing raw materials to be consumed into a production order. So this can impact closure, even though the manufacturing module does not have its own close process. It closely impacts inventory closing. All right, so that's that kind of quick side. Just kind of keep an eye out. Oh, that's right. I said I was going to come here and just, what I'm really looking for is, are there any documents that are in the status of balance or on hold? So if I want to check for it manually prior to conducting my inventory close, this is not a bad idea, is to go through, are there any move transactions in the database that are in the status of balanced or on hold? And the good news is this, at least in the sample data, there are none. Let's just check labor real quick while we've got it. Right, so there are no unreleased manufacturing production order related transactions like labor and materials that could possibly hinder inventory subledger close process. All right, if you're not a manufacturer, you can kind of check back in. Thank you for that quick aside. The last subledger I wanted to kind of go through was fixed asset closure. If you do have fixed assets, no surprise now, just like AP and AR, there is a fixed asset subledger balance by GL account report for reconciliation to the general ledger. So let's run it in our sample data here. That's fine. Account-wise, now this is an area where you will typically have multiple accounts. So if I come in here to our sample data, look up our fixed asset accounts, furniture, vehicles, computer and office equipment, etc. This report you might want to run on a per account basis in case it's multiple pages, for example, and then obtain for account, in this case, 15,000, the current balance in that account. Right, this is assuming you have been keeping up with depreciation processes in your fixed asset subledger module. Then you could be taking a look at this and comparing it to our finance account details for 1,500. All right, so subledger to GL reconciliation in fixed assets, very much like other subledgers. And next would be up the closing of financial periods. And this form is going to look really similar, right? Do you have any fixed asset records that were left on hold or not released? Each of these subledgers is also going to typically have a quick way to check for those even before you begin your close process. You can go to the released FA transactions, just like release AP, release AR transactions. So Acumatica has got typical, it's going to have a lot of redundancy as far as the ways you might most easily manage your close process, in addition to the close periods process kind of catching anything that you didn't catch through this unreleased documents. All right, that's fixed assets. We are closing in. We're now to the GL. So now we come back to where we started, the master financial calendar. And if I come in here to, let's pick on May 2016. Now I went through a proper AP subledger close, an inventory subledger close. I skipped AR, cash, and fixed assets. And that's okay. I don't have to do module level closure. I still get the same kind of double check if I invoke the close periods here from the master financial calendar. We'll see a little warning on the managed financial periods. What if I just want to close, let's say I want to close all of 2016, less the adjustment period, for example. I get a status report that someone in accounts payable went through module level closure, someone in IN, but I'm going to basically do it in one fell swoop, closing out the remaining AR, cash, and fixed assets if applicable. That's okay. I can do that from here. I'll get a kind of a comprehensive unposted documents warning if applicable, and I can hit process. And it will remind you, hey, this process is going to force module level or subledger closure in AR, cash, and fixed assets, as well as closing the GL. Are you okay with that? The answer is yes. In this scenario, okay, so kind of two paths. All that's left over open is 2016 as the adjustment period. I went through module level closure in AP and IN, and then I allowed the close process right from the master financial calendar to close out the remaining AR, cash, and fixed assets and close the GL. Next part of the life cycle would be if I am done with audit for 2016, maybe less the adjustment period, is to lock these periods now. Only once the GL, general ledger or finance period is closed is it eligible to be locked. And that'll happen like when you come to this managed financial periods form. What I'm really doing is going back and forth between managed financial periods and managed financial periods and master financial calendar. Those two forms kind of toggle back and forth between one another. If you invoke the action lock, it's only going to show periods in the database that are already closed. They're the only ones eligible for locking. I'm going to try to say lock up through 2016. Let's see, can I lock all the way up through December 2016? It's going to backfill, and I can hit process. So that's locking closed periods. Now, even if I possess the financial supervisor role that we looked at the beginning, no one could post to those periods. They would have to be unlocked, which we'll take a look at in a moment, in order to put any sort of entry into any subledger, including the GL. Okay, so again, managed financial periods is the action form where I actually execute what I want to do. Managed financial calendar is where I decide why I need to do something. So now I actually have locked periods. If I needed to edit November 2016 for some reason, and it's locked, I will need to unlock any of its successors. So let's try that. Just to get familiar with this, I would like to unlock periods. Locked is a very, very safe place to put things. It will stay that way. At the same time, it is reversible, right? So if you have access to this feature per your security. So if I want to unlock November, it will insist that I unlock its successor, December. We can hit process. Okay. And I'll come back here to master financial calendar. And for 2016, for example, I have locked up through October and November and December, and in a closed state. If I possess a financial supervisor role, I could post to the GL there. All right. We are closing in. Appreciate everyone's patience. I look forward to fielding questions afterwards. So I've kind of got through the closing process. Let's do our final kind of like year-end closing review. All right. A couple like little nuts and bolts about the year turning over. One is our year-to-date net income account automatically updates and clears its balance for a given fiscal year and places that balance into retained earnings, right? So that happens automatically in Acumatica when you cross a year. That's kind of part one. There might be a few administrative things that you need to do for the next year in preparation. So here it is December. And if you haven't already generated the financial calendar periods for 2023, you would need to hit this button. Now, let's see, in my sample database, that's 2023 has already happened. So I'll just advance the calendar and we'll just pretend that 2020, it's December 2023. I'm going to generate calendar. And it's basically saying, I know you need to generate 2024. Do you want to do more than that? You could pre-generate more than 2024. I'll leave it as default. And there you go. Now when I advance the master financial calendar forwards or backwards, or come in here to the select form, I will see brand new financial periods for 2024, which I won't use for another 13 months, sitting in their brand new state. They are inactive. They are waiting to be opened, right? And so that would be an action of opening those periods that I would need to go through. Periods have been generated, and then someone has opened them. Okay, so that's kind of a typical year-end housekeeping item. If you do have fixed assets, you might need to come and generate the fixed asset quote book calendar, which is its own thing. Now it looks like the Acumatica sample data has been covered out through 2070 because I've got some very long running straight line depreciation. But it's possible that you've had like a little bit shorter run as far as generating book calendars. It's a very small administrative action. It's easy. You just basically say, if you're good through 2070, then you must need 2071. And how far out do you want to go? And you hit go. Okay. If you do record time cards in Acumatica as a professional services organization, manufacturer, field services, lots of different businesses, and you happen to have a custom week configuration, then it is the time and expenses preferences form that has this custom week generate weeks button. So this would need to be manually done for, in this case, 2023, if it hasn't been done. Now, this sample database doesn't use custom weeks, but if you have something other than a straight up Monday through Friday, 4 weeks plus a partial week that Acumatica goes through, then you might need this. Okay. Very small. Let's see, I think that's about it as far as financial close. I guess with our remaining minutes, I would ask, Betsy, do you know if there's any questions in chat or Q&A? I hadn't checked.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I don't see any. So that is really the conclusion. I will thank you for your time today. Betsy and I will be posting the recording as well as making available a PDF document of the agenda that I kind of went through today. And Martin Associates, we appreciate you, your business. Hope you have a great holiday season and Happy New Year heading into 2023. We look forward to any questions about year-end close processes for you and your business on Acumatica. Thank you very much.